Hello. This is an after-the-fact recording of a commentary to cover the Gaul short campaign that I ran, which succeeded in meeting the victory conditions in only 4 turns, which is the shortest possible length of time that it can take, although it can be done more efficiently if someone cares to try to do that. At the beginning here, I just show the Gallic situation. They start out with 7 towns, which is a great advantage because that means you only have to conquer 8 more, including Rome, of course. And they have a pretty good set of generals as well, and generals in this game are very important. I have the speed for the character and army movements set at the slow speed, so that everything is very clear. It makes the game a little bit longer, but I knew that I was going to put it on YouTube if it was successful, and I wanted to make everything clear for anyone who wanted to try to imitate or better what I've done. I moved that cavalry to the east towards Osca because in order to siege a town and build a siege ram in 1 turn, you have to have 4 units in the army. If you have 3, it takes 2, and so on. I'm showing the mercenaries that are available there. I didn't buy them then, I do buy them later, and that's probably not necessary. I'll probably say more about that then. Now here 3 war bands are coming southwest from Narbo Martius, and they're headed for Osca, which is just south of where that hourglass was spinning. Pick up Vindex and move him east. He's headed for Segesta. And I do make a slight, not quite an error, but maybe call it a poor judgment. I do buy this barbarian mercenary here. It might be better to buy him like a move space to the west of where he is, because that induces the possibility of moving those 2 units together at the start of turn 2, which is a mistake because they proceed separately. In fact, I made that mistake and had to restart turn 2 because I did that. At Alicia, the cavalry is headed north to the border to keep an eye on the Britons, and as a setup for later moves. Now, it's not really necessary to go after Samara Briva, because you can take 15 towns without it. But since Genius of the Restoration took 16 territories in total, I just thought I might as well try to do that as well. I moved this ship over to keep an eye on the Briton ship, which at this point does not have any troops on it. It will later move and put troops on it as a preparation for invading the mainland of Europe. And if I'm thinking about the long game, I don't want that to happen, or at least I want to know when it's about to happen. So I keep an eye on that fleet. And here I move 4 infantry units south towards Lugdunum. It's important to have 4 units in your army, because it takes that many units in order to build a siege ram in 1 turn. If you only have 3 units, it will take you 2 turns. And Brennus is moved northeast to the adjacent province because that is a different mercenary pool, and in that province he can pick up 2 barbarian mercenaries and a cavalry mercenary. I'll show them here. I won't get them on this turn because they aren't needed yet, and that saves paying a turn's maintenance fees for those units. And I send my diplomat down towards Arretium to talk to the Julii about a trade agreement. I've noticed in other YouTube videos people make trade agreements and they don't bother to get any money. Trade agreements are an easy source of denarii, and you should take advantage of them. I usually start out the same way, ask for 2,000 and I don't get it, and then I start to negotiate. The fact that the Julii start out at 410 is usually a positive sign. If they start out with a negative amount, that's not a good sign, and you're probably not going to end up with as much money. I sweeten the deal, and they're willing to give 1,900 across 2 turns. Now, if somebody will give you 1,900 across 2 turns, they'll probably give you 1,800 in 1 turn. Here, however, they were a little sticky, and I didn't get quite 1,800, although I have in the past. They just repeated their offer, and so I dropped it down to 1799. And that worked. So I picked up almost 1,800 denarii there.
Yes, master.
And there's Arretium, which is the first target for my Gaul armies in Italy.
General.
This placement of the Gaul troops from Mediolanum and Patavium is important. If you move the Gauls farther south, down to that maximum point that you just saw briefly, the Romans behave differently. The Julii will move and attack Segesta, for example, if you have the Gauls strung out. However, if you situate the Gauls as you're going to see, they don't do that, and they keep an army next to Arretium, which is very important for taking Arretium on the second turn.
Yes. General.
Move the cavalry separately because it can move up a little bit farther than the 2 war bands in Patavium.
Merging armies. General. Yes.
They end up 1 square behind
Forward.
the rest of the force. And my final move is to move the spy southeast towards Ariminum. I don't bother to send him down to Arretium because he's not going to enter the city there. And I know what's there from having played the Julii many, many times.
Out of moves.
Now it's just time for city management, setting tax rates and doing my recruiting and constructing. I made essentially the same purchase as Genius of the Restoration. 2 roads, Patavium and Mediolanum, and units to replace units where the cities have been left empty by everybody moving out. The save number should let you know this is far from the first time I tried this game. Doing something like this requires repeated experiments. You try something, it doesn't work, you figure out how to make it work, and then try it again. And you just keep going back, sometimes all the way back to the beginning of the game, to do things right.
General. Yes.
Here I make a point of moving Vindex by himself the very first thing, because this was a mistake I made at the beginning of turn 2 the first time I started it. I picked up that collection and moved them both towards Massilia, and then realized I had screwed up with Vindex. Notice here that it says time to build 2 turns,
Under siege.
and then when I add
Forward.
the Barbarian Mercenary,
Joining forces.
it's now time to build queued items, or queued items, was reduced to 1 turn.
Orders. Forward.
This army continues west to Scalabus. I don't actually have to attack this army, but I'm probably going to end up fighting it when I siege Scalabus anyway. So I do attack it for that reason. It just retreats. And for another reason, if you don't attack it, it sometimes wanders off to the northeast
Out of move.
towards Numantia, and I don't want it to get any ideas about attacking Numantia when I'm off attacking Scalabus.
Yes.
And I continue to move my cavalry unit towards Osca,
Forward.
which will come into view here in a second. There it is.
No more moves.
My war bands also move toward Osca, and they come across a Spanish army that's sitting just south of the border. However, they don't have enough movement points to successfully attack it.
Destroy.
And I continue to move these infantry units down toward Lugdunum.
Move. Out of moves.
And I show the garrison here. It's small, so 4 units should be plenty. Add the reinforcement cavalry to the first unit.
Move. Joining forces. General.
Make sure that they're close enough to Samoriva to get there on the 3rd turn.
General.
And recruit these mercenaries. And move the general up next to the cavalry and make sure that he's close enough that he can get to Samoriva on the 3rd turn.
Attack. Forward.
You might notice that
Out of
the
move.
Briton fleet has moved. It's now at the mouth of the Thames. So I'm going to move my fleet up next to it right after I get through looking at the Britons around Samoriva to see how many there are.
Ready to sail.
Also, the Briton fleet has
Aye, aye, Captain.
picked up a couple units. As it's getting ready to prepare an invasion of the European mainland. move my diplomat down to Rome, where he tries to negotiate a trade agreement with the SPQR faction. And that agreement just fails. And ordinarily I would cut it out, but I'm going to use the opportunity to talk about my Rome Total War history. Back in the 90s, I got my first PC, and one of the first games I got for it was the original Civilization, which at that time was the greatest PC game made. And to me it was completely addictive. I would literally stay up till 4 a.m. playing it. I couldn't stop playing it. I also came across a game called Centurion, Defender of Rome, which I noticed was mentioned recently in a Total War Center post. But it is has to be an ancestor of Rome Total War. You can see the rudiments of the ideas in Rome Total War in that game. In a way, Rome Total War is a combination of Centurion and Civilization, with a number of changes and upgrades, of course. But I played those two games just an enormous amount of time. And then later on, around 1999, a friend of mine at work mentioned the game Shogun. And that intrigued me because I had been a fan of the TV series Shogun. And so eventually I got a copy of it and was pretty addicted to it too. I was very much into it and played it a great deal. And when Rome came out, well, that was like game heaven to me. And that has been, since I first got it over about a decade ago, been the game I have played the most. In fact, I've played almost no other computer games in the last 10 years, except for some Medieval 2, and I've tried the other Total War games, but none of them have come close to Rome in their attractiveness to me.
Yes, my lord.
Some games just have some quality that grabs you and sucks you in, and other games, even though they may be technically better made, don't have that quality.
Lord. Moving into position.
I did a save here because I'm about to move the spy into Arretium, and that's not a 100% chance. And for some reason I did another quick save, and I guess I was being extra careful. But the spy does get in successfully. And note that he has a 32% chance of opening the gates. And then I resave my save game. Games with the way I do things is game saves with suffixes are intermediary. They're within a turn. So this is the first save within turn 2. The save at the end of turn 2 will be 6-2. This movement is very important. We need this general to attack Lucius Julius' army and be in a position where he can enter Arretium after he's won the battle. By attacking Lucius Julius, he's going to induce the Arretium garrison, headed by Flavius, to come out and join in the defense, and that will give him the chance to, Eporedorix, the chance to get a walk-in into Arretium if he destroys both armies and kills both generals. Now that I've determined that I can make the attack, I bring up the 2 rearmost Gallic units. If I brought them up at the beginning, I might have ended up movement points short. They wouldn't have been able to participate in the attack, and when I made the attack attempt, it wouldn't go through, it wouldn't happen, and I would have wrecked my chance to make the attack. Checking over the armies, 3 Histadian archers, into Astadian and Triari. There's the, I believe the first edit here is I skipped all of the load the battle map. The key thing about this battle is that you have to fight the Roman armies in the correct order. If you try to take on the main Roman army, that's going to show up at the bottom of the map first and to destroy it. The reinforcing army, which is going to show up at the upper right corner of the battle area on the map, will run away. And you won't be able to catch it because you'll be just too far away. And so you will fail the battle. You have to attack and destroy the reinforcements first. But they're very close to an edge, so if you put your army down close to that edge and rush them and try to wipe them out right away, they'll probably get enough guys off the edge of the map when they rout to prevent you from being able to walk into Arretium. You have to not just defeat them, you have to destroy them. So you just have to be patient and wait for the reinforcements to come to you. The main army really doesn't do much. It just sits down there at the edge of the map almost always. Sometimes it advances a little bit, and once in a while it will send the archers toward you. And the thing with the archers is, if that happens, you just have to ignore them and stay away from them. Because if you attack and destroy them, you give that army a reason to run off the edge of the map, and again you failed. Exactly how the Romans approach you probably depends on exactly how you set up the Gaul army, and I haven't run this game dozens and dozens of times to figure out what the optimal Gaul location is. This time they attack with 2 infantry units. Usually it's just one, sometimes the whole army comes over all at once. My battle here was not optimum. Looking at this after I played it, I got the cavalry way too far back. I don't know what I was thinking. I probably just being extra careful. I'm not nimble enough anymore with my mousing skills to be able to play the game at anything beyond the slowest speed. So I usually play battles slowly and carefully. As you can see there, I was not quick enough when my guys got involved with the infantry, but no harm came from it. And because I was involved with them, the Roman infantry managed an attack on the corner of my warband, so I have to deal with that. And now the Roman general is charging in, so I start to deal with that. I'll get my cavalry into him. And when he does that, the other Hastadi attacks the other couple of my warbands. Right now they're throwing pretty well. And here the general is routing, that's a good thing, but I didn't have them surrounded, so there was a chance he could have gotten away. Didn't. But that could have happened, so I didn't have my troops in optimum formation. And now the Hastadi are meleeing against my warband, and the Triari are now coming in. But things are under control. It's just a matter of finishing it off. You may notice there wasn't any Roman general death scene. Playing this is vanilla Rome Total War, however I turned off movies and the cutscenes, and as you probably noticed, I have the character names displayed on the campaign map. I made all those changes by editing the preferences.txt file. And I have a video on how to do that, and there are also other sources on the internet for how to modify your preferences.txt file. You can do that to tailor the game to exactly the way you want to display it. I've also turned off the little green circles or arrows or triangles or whatever they are under the units, because I found those to be just annoying. Notice that I've paid no attention to the main Roman army because it just sits up there. It really doesn't do anything while you're defeating the reinforcements. Now notice that it's running off, and it looks like it's going to run off the map. As it turns out, it doesn't. It just runs towards the edge of the map. And so we have to take some time in order to move our forces up and get them in position so they can keep the Roman units from routing off. And here I should be setting up my infantry close to the edge to the side of the Romans, and I'm moving my cavalry up as well. And here I did speed up the game to triple speed because there's nothing going on. And this is the sort of thing that in an ordinary campaign, in an ordinary battle, somewhere in the middle of the campaign, I would just cut this all out. What I'm trying to do is as few cuts as I can get away with, since this was a record setting as far as I know campaign run. There'll be more cuts in the second and third because there are some battles with some rather tedious parts. But if you're interested in the full 3 hours and a half, that's available on my channel as well, but there's no commentary. But you get to see the whole thing, including mistakes. And now that the armies are getting close, I start slowing it down. I just cannot double or triple speed battles. It's just not fast enough for a couple of reasons. One of which is lack of practice. I've played Rome Total War off and on over the last 10 years or so, but I've never played it regularly. I would bring it out, play a couple campaigns, have a lot of fun, and then go on and do other things that I'm interested in. And then a couple years later, I'd drag it out again and play a couple more campaigns. And I never really got serious about the game until last summer when I started watching YouTube videos and reading some forum articles and realized just how shallow my understanding of the game was, even though I was beating it on a very hard difficulty level. That just takes practice. You don't have to be really good, you just have to be persistent to do that. So it was only a few months ago that I learned about how to win with style, not just win. Although my style is still lacking. I'm winning much more quickly and much more efficiently. I don't know how much good those war cries really do. I guess they do something. They're there. I mishandled my cavalry here. I moved them a little all at once too far away. That's an important aspect of battles. Moving groups and units sometimes results in units not doing what you want, especially if they're cavalry. They'll run off some other direction. If you want the units to do exactly what you want, you need to move individually. So the Roman general has gotten into my war bands and is running them off because they just cannot stand up to any sort of general. But I did get the cavalry there, so now I'm trying to take out that general. There may be some stock with him. I think looks like there's other units there. But I've got him to rout, and once again, he's not completely surrounded, but he does die. And again, there's no cutscene because I cut those out. I don't mind the general cutscenes, but I got really annoyed with the siege cutscenes. Close-up of the blunt end of a ram got really boring. When I found out that you could cut out cutscenes, I did that immediately. And unfortunately, you can't cut out just the one type of cutscene. You have both types or no types. For a minute here, I thought that this army was going to boogie off the edge of the map, and I might have failed. But they did stop. At least briefly. Now it looks like that one unit wants to. You know, it's like right on the edge of running off. You can see it routes immediately. As soon as it gets touched, it's gone. So they were very close to routing here. It was a good thing I had some cavalry there to make sure I could catch those guys before they got away. because my army's not optimally placed. And I was a bit worried at the end that maybe I wasn't catching enough of it. But I did. I was also concerned about the number of cavalry casualties. I can replace the warband casualties in Arretium, but I can't replace the cavalry in Italy. At least not in the first few turns. There's just no way for me to do that.
This is no longer a
battle because I run down everything I can to make sure that I have enough, and I think it's this running down those guys right there that does it. If I let those guys get away, that would have been really bad.
The enemy has been utterly
That's one thing to watch out for at the end of the game, is make sure that when it offers you the opportunity to quit, you are really ready to quit. It says the victory is heroic, although I did lose 300 men, that's 30% of the army. But I did destroy the Roman armies and kill both the generals, which is what I needed to do.
Fear us out of moves.
And my general gets some benefits, and I do a save because it's a good run of that battle, so I save it.
Yes.
In case something bad happens between now and the end of the turn. You know, like I mismove units or something like that. Now here's something weird that I don't understand. I can't move my guys directly into Arretium, and I don't know why. It just happened. But eventually I figure it out that I just have to move them north and then east. I was trying different combinations, thinking it was something about the individual units or whatever. There we go.
Leaving the army. March! Kill them! We shall rule!
And that works. I exterminate. I'm reluctant to exterminate cities, but I really need money as the Gauls. And extermination does give you quick money at the cost of less money from the city each turn from then on. So, as a rule in my games, I only exterminate under conditions of dire necessity early in the game, or when I'm occupying a really highly populated city that will be really hard to manage, like say an Egyptian city, where they tend to have huge populations by the time you get to them. And you need to exterminate them, one, because you get a lot of money, and two, otherwise you'll have to leave a huge garrison behind. And I don't like leaving huge garrisons behind. I like my armies out in the field, conquering new territories, not sitting around in occupied cities. I move those troops, Epidaurus and some others,
Splitting the troops! Move
out towards Arretium to make sure they're close enough to attack it on the next turn. Also as an experiment, since I have the save, I was interested in seeing if SPQR would come up and attack a Gallic force out there, because I'd never been in this situation, and I wanted to learn something. Part of doing something like this is trying different things, seeing what happens, seeing what works, what doesn't work, and figuring out how to improve to things that work from the things that don't work. And I think this is my last move, is to get these two units out and head then for Arretium. Apparently I was doing some thinking, and I'm just going over the map again, checking to make sure I've done everything that I need to do. And now I need to settle the public order. And this is where I make the mistake. I don't do much purchasing this turn because I want to save money for the next turn, so I replace the war bands. Also recruit additional cavalry and militia. That's a replacement. And I recruit a unit in Arretium and another cavalry unit for Mantua. I was clearly thinking about what to do here. This is why in my normal campaign videos this part just gets axed out. So I left this in because here I made a mistake. I do retrain, but as you can see there, it says 65. And while 70 is okay, 65 is not so okay. And I should have cranked up or lowered the taxes there and cranked up the public order. And because of that, I started turn 3, had a riot, and realized what I'd done, and came back to my save right here. That's the end of turn save. And had to load it back up and fix my mistake. Hence this edit. There. And while I was here, realizing that low taxes, the city wasn't very happy, that would be a problem in the future, so I decided to take care of that by taking out the shrine to Bacchus, which gives me a little bit of money, and replacing it with a Gallic shrine. That's basically a move towards the future, because I'm thinking about using this as the basis for a full campaign. So now I've got my 6.2's been redone, and I start turn 3. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions or comments, please post them on YouTube. I will be starting turn 3 recording as soon as this finishes.